Hi, Annalisa Six here with the Lady of Leisure and the Sober Curator, here to give you the 2023 March horoscope for the sun and rising sign of Virgo. It's a lot to say before each video, not tongue twister at all. Hi, Virgo, how are you? How has your start to March been so far? We've got a ton of energy in the sign of Aries that we're going to start off talking about. I'm pretty much talking about it in every horoscope video just because it's kind of the star of the astrological show right now. So kind of just pinpointing where it's activated in the horoscope chart for you and kind of how you can use this energy to your benefit. So we have 5 celestial bodies in the sign of Aries right now. So Aries is cardinal fire energy. It's all about action, determination, the relationship we have with ourselves, how we put that self forward, ambition, confidence, assertion, all those kinds of themes. And where it's hitting in the Virgo horoscope is the area of the chart that has to do with shared resources. So shared resources are any resources, so like money, food, home, your house, that kind of stuff, business, if you have a business partner, those types of things, shared resources, those themes get highlighted because shared resources can also sometimes tie to inheritance, investments, loans with a partner or family member. Those are also highlighted. This area of the chart is also the area that represents death, rebirth, and sex. Sex is creation, right? We create through sex. And so the death rebirth cycle is also sexual because it's through sex that we manifest form. So that's highlighted in this area. And inheritance in our relationship to the resources or the assets that we not only make for ourselves by buying our own assets or creating our own assets, but also the assets that are tied to our family members and what we get when they pass away and when they die. So lots of themes. This is the area of the chart that Scorpio traditionally rules, but in the Virgo horoscope, you have Aries here. And so the 5 bodies that are in Aries are Juno, Vesta, 2 asteroids. We've got Venus and Jupiter conjunct today, and Chiron. Chiron is also within that conjunction. And so Chiron, being a part of this Aries energy for a few years now is not new to this area of your chart. So Chiron being the wounded healer, this is the area where we might be healing some things around those themes over a period of time. But when we have Jupiter in the mix and Venus in the mix, it elevates all of that. So Jupiter and Venus are considered to be benefics in traditional astrology. So Jupiter is the greater benefic of good fortune, and Venus is the lesser benefic of good fortune, but they're both here representing good fortune. One of the things about Jupiter that you don't often hear modern astrologers talk about is that prior to the discovery of Pluto or the use of Pluto in astrology, Jupiter was actually the planet that symbolized death. And Jupiter is very prominent and active in death charts. And so when we have Jupiter passing through this area of the chart, it also kind of highlights and brings an emphasis to those themes, as well as the abundance and good fortune part. So sometimes through loss and through letting things go or transition, good things can grow and good things can happen. And sometimes we might be feeling more of the negative impacts before we see the positive ones. But, there usually is some positives that come out of death or, transition of energy. And we might not ever think that it's positive. I think of certain family members of mine, when they pass, it's really hard for me to imagine anything positive about that. Like if I live to see the day of most of my family members passing away, like it's really hard for me, regardless of what I inherit financially or asset wise. Nothing to me is more valuable than them being alive on this planet. So I think that, our perspective influences a lot of how we see transition. And transition, I actually really enjoy when people use that term for people when they pass, because I do think that when people leave their human form or their bodies, it's a transition into another state of being. I don't think that it's like poof, you're gone forever. Scientifically, we know that energy never stops. So I think that energetically our energy just does something else, So, and I definitely believe there's another side. I definitely feel like I've communicated with people on the other side. I know I have. So my belief system, I think that we reincarnate. I don't think everybody reincarnates here necessarily, but I think that we do incarnate throughout the universe in various forms. And so, you know, having that belief system for me personally does give me solace when people in my life have passed away. You know, there's certain things that have happened where I do feel like people are communicating with me from the other side from my past. And that makes me feel like, you know, it is just a transition, you know? So I think that when we have this area highlighted in our charts, it's painful and it can be difficult in one way, but in another way, it's very empowering to work through those feelings and to kind of work through the onion layer of the transitions that we go through. And so if you feel like some of those things are coming up, you know, like death, grief around death, or birth, creation, also, you know, if there's shared resources or assets or inheritance that you're dealing with right now, this is a really good time to take action moving forward on it. It's really weird to me to see this part of the chart highlighted for Virgo this month, because my own mom is a Virgo who is currently dealing with some inheritance stuff from a family member. So when I saw the chart, which you might watch this, hi mom, when I saw the chart for Virgo, I was just like, wow, she's not even Virgo rising either. So just how accurate the horoscope is for my Virgo mom is fascinating, you know? And I think, you know, not everybody might be dealing with inheritance per se, but if you're dealing with investments, loans, buying a home or refinancing a home or a car, or even just helping a family member with those things, or getting life insurance policies together or savings accounts, just all that kind of stuff is a big theme. The other thing that happens with Aries here is sex gets activated. Our desire for sex when Venus is in this area can be elevated, and there might be kind of some desire for more passion or romance or action in your relationship if you're married or with a long-term partner. Even if you're not with a long-term partner, you might feel a boost in sexual energy for the month of March in general, where we start out March in Pisces season, which is the opposite of Virgo, you know, so it can be a little hard for some Virgos if you're not comfortable with Pisces energy, but you know, we end the month in Aries season, and Mercury will be entering Aries. So let's get more into some of the other transits that are going on. So if we want to talk about Mercury, today's actually the last day that Mercury is in the sign of Aquarius. It's conjunct Saturn right now. So today specifically, March 2nd, is a really positive day to reflect on the last 3 years. With Saturn having entered Aquarius on March 20th, I believe, of 2020. Saturn had entered Aquarius on the spring equinox, the day that we had our shutdown. And so pretty much since Saturn's been in Aquarius, our whole world has kind of been tipped on its head in many different ways. And so Mercury kind of teaming up with Saturn, it's a really good time to reflect on the ways that you've grown and changed in the last 2 years. I can't help but think about how much disagreements and arguments and fighting people had about their belief systems. It just in relation to lots of things, you know, like healthcare, vaccine, to vaccinate or not to vaccinate, the way that we politicize our rights, you know, in many ways, like as women, also sexual rights, reproductive rights, gender rights. Like we've had so much discussion around that. We've had, you know, Black Lives Matter movement, all that stuff. So I think, you know, as collectively, we've gone through a lot of things. And then on an individual level, we've gone through a lot of things. So this is today specifically, if you see this, is a good day to reflect on that, because, you know, we're moving into some new energy this month that, you know, we're kind of leaving some of those stories behind and writing some new ones finally. So, and I don't mean collectively in terms of the issues that are still on the table. I just mean our personal stuff, because obviously we have not solved any of those problems, and who knows if we ever will. So Mercury enters Pisces on March 3rd, which again is the opposite of Virgo. So Virgo traditionally is ruled by Mercury. Mercury rules Virgo and Gemini. And so when Mercury is in an opposite sign, it's considered to be in its detriment. And so that means that it's not where it thrives, essentially. It's not necessarily a bad thing for it to be in the opposite. I like to think of planets or signs that are opposing as an opportunity for integration. And so we don't have to see it as like, oh, you know, Mercury's in Pisces, so everything's going to be crazy because it doesn't do well here. You know, I feel like sometimes I'll talk that way in certain ways just because it's not necessarily how Mercury prefers to operate in the traditional sense. But again, in the integration sense, it can be really positive. So Mercury in Pisces is a great time for creativity and thinking outside the box. Virgo is very practical about how to complete something, and it also, you know, thinks about the bigger picture and all the ways something can be problem solved. But Virgo can sometimes be a little too reality centered or reality focused without sometimes thinking outside of the confines of reality, which Pisces does really well with. So Pisces can sit and envision something that seems very fantastical and impossible, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is impossible. It might mean that we're just not thinking so rigidly. So it's really good energy for people that are artistic or musical. You know, obviously there's a math to everything, like music, there's a math to it, but you don't necessarily have to learn the math of music in order to do it, right? Like you don't have to know what all the notes are that you're singing to sing, but Virgo is going to want to know what all of the notes are. Gemini is going to want to know more of what the science is. And so those are some of the things about the ways that planets and different signs can manifest, right? So Mercury in Pisces is more about feeling into something. You don't necessarily have to understand it in a practical way or in a scientific way, but you can feel into it. And I think for me, like I have Mercury in Virgo, so I think very mercurial Virgo. But I have my Pisces moon in the third house, which is the house that Gemini rules, that Mercury also rules. And what that does for somebody like me, and I'm using my own anecdotal stuff because I think it's a good example of merging the mercurial Piscean energy in a positive way. I like all of it. I like to feel into something and I want to understand how it works. I'm very much, this is also my Sag. I'm very much like, why does it work? How does it work? What's the science of it? What's the academic part of it? But I don't really care about that stuff if I'm not feeling into it as well. If it doesn't make me feel something, I could care less about how it works. You know, I think that's why math was always really hard for me growing up, because it just felt so bland. Like it just felt very practical and bland. And I'm just kind of like, well, this doesn't make me feel anything. Some people feel invigorated by math, and astrology is mathematical, but because astrology is so intuitive and feeling centered, it made math interesting to me. And I was like, man, I had been introduced to math through astrology. I probably would have been really good at it, you know, because astrology has actually helped me get a little bit better at math. But that's kind of something to think about with Mercury and Pisces as a Virgo. Like if you're a Virgo sun rising, you don't have a lot of water energy or a lot of Pisces energy, sometimes letting go of the rigidity of how something's supposed to work and just feeling into it can be hard for you. And that can also be something that's good to practice because, you know, there's a lot of systems of operation that get put into place because they work. Doesn't always necessarily mean it's the best way or that it's right or ethical, right? And Pisces, wanting to be of service in a very empathic way, cares a lot about whether or not things are ethical or whether or not something is right for the whole. Not saying that Virgo doesn't care either, but Virgo might be more, well, it works, so let's just do it. But there might be a lot of people miserable doing it, you know? And so if it's not cultivating joy or cultivating happiness, is it really the best way? Maybe there's a way to go about it that's a little more go with the flow and less rigid. You know, let's sing while we work instead of it having to be this dry, serious, you know, environment. I think like Virgo rules health and hospice. And I don't remember if Virgo rules hospitals. I don't think it does. It might, but it rules the area of the chart that has to do with daily routine and like hospice and those types of professions and health, you know, healthcare, health, like nutrition, that kind of stuff is very Taurus Virgo. And so one of the things that I think a lot about with how Virgo applies things is the way a hospital or like a clinic feels, where it just feels like no feeling was put into it. It's very practical though for what is going on there. It's clean, you know, it's got to follow these state boards. It's got to have this like very strict system in order to get everything done and keep everyone clean. But when you're in a hospital, you lack warmth. Usually, it feels very detached and just kind of meh, and I know like my Pisces grandmother, when she was starting to kind of decline, my family really, I mean, she herself, but also my family members did not want her to be in a hospital. My dad is convinced that if she had been put in a home or a hospital, she would not have lived as long. My grandma also was like, the moment that all my stuff is gone and I'm in a hospital, I'm going to let go of life. Like there's no point. And, the fact that she got to live her last years at her home was very warm. Was it clean? Was it organized? Was it meticulous? No. Was it kind of horrifying to be in her space while she was, declining? Sometimes. Like it was like I was there and I was like, this is really dirty, and I wish that she was in a cleaner environment. But I think the thing for her as a Pisces was that it had that warmth and it had that feeling, like it felt like home to her, right? And so that's something to kind of think about as a Virgo when we are going through Pisces, which is the opposite, is that while it's so nice to have these systems and this cleanliness or this organization or these daily routines, if we lack the emotion or we lack the warmth or we lack the joy part of it, that sometimes Pisces is a lot better at cultivating, or the go with the flow and the more kind of like exploration, loosey goosiness, those things that are supposed to help us can actually, create kind of these other feelings that are not so great. So I think Pisces is a really good opportunity to let go and let flow. As cheesy as that sounds, it's one of my favorite sayings as a Pisces moon and Sag rising. I love let go and let flow, just not, some things work out even in chaos. Like I know people their whole lives that they run look chaotic and crazy, and my Mercury Virgo's freaking out, but for some reason it's working. I don't know why. So it's an example that we all have different ways of getting to the same thing. Sometimes there's better ways, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to still happen. So Mercury is going to be in Pisces from March 3rd until March 18th. And it's actually going to be in the area of the chart that rules your personal relationship. So partnership. So this is a really good time to communicate on those feelings, and to kind of have some empathy, towards your partner. And maybe if you are requiring more sensitivity in the relationship, that's also something that you might want to talk about. This is a really romantic time for you and your partner if you choose to use the energy that way. Pisces loves to be dramatically romantic. So it's a good to kind of lean into those feelings. And then Mercury is going to enter Aries and join the Aries party the day before the spring equinox. So on March 19th. So by March 20th, we're going to have the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, Chiron in Aries. Venus and Juno will have moved into Taurus by then. And then we're going to have a new moon in Aries on the 21st that I'll talk about a little bit later. So again, like, Mercury moving into this area of the chart in Aries, again, assets, shared resources, sex, marriage, death and rebirth, all those themes are going to be so prominent for you in the month of March. Let's talk about Venus moving into Taurus. So we'll have Venus in Aries for the first half of the month. And then around the 17th, Venus is going to move into Taurus, which is the sign that Venus rules along with Libra. So Venus is the ruler of Libra and Taurus. Venus in Taurus has a lot to do with financial stability. It has to do with our body and how our relationship to our body, how we take care of our body. Virgo also has those themes. So this is a really good energy for you to kind of create structure and stability within your beauty health routine. The area that it's hitting in the horoscope chart for Virgo is the area that has to do with your belief systems. So Venus is going to basically be blessing these kind of religion, philosophy, spirituality, travel, spiritual exploration, all that kind of stuff is highlighted at the end of March. So if you're feeling, like you want to go on a trip, or you're feeling like you want to start a class, or, teach a class, or learn something new, or go deeper into a spiritual practice, or learn about another culture, go to an art gallery, do that kind of stuff. The end of March is really active in that way. Venus is also the planet that is tied to our relationships. So this could, it's usually looked at as romantic partnership, but it can be friends. So you might feel like you want to experience those things with people or other people. So that's really positive too. Mars is going to be finishing its transit through Gemini finally. So we're going to have Mars in Gemini for most of the month. And then on the 25th, Mars is going to enter the cardinal water sign of Cancer, where it's going to be until May. And so pretty much from the end of March until May, you're going to have Mars in the area that represents your community and the relationships that you have in whatever group organizations you're a part of. So if you're a part of a political group or a ladies group or a male, guys group, or maybe no gender specific group, but, a coven, any kind of like social group that you're a part of, is highlighted for the last half of, or the last few days of March, and then April and the first part of May. And so you might feel super social. Mars in this area, Mars, it represents so many things. It represents like where our ambition and willpower is to go after things. So if you're networking, or if your work involves networking, or you just want to make new friends and meet people, that's very activated for you. But one of the other things that Mars has a tendency to do is bring conflict. And so this is also a month where you could have conflict with a friend group or a group that you're with. And you might also, with Venus, moving into that area that has to do with your belief systems, you could be asking yourself, like, is this group in alignment with the belief systems that I have? And there's opportunity for you to end up in alignment that way with Venus there, kind of helping you figure out what that is. But there's also opportunity for you to have the opposite effect, where you're very much like, nope, this isn't for me. I need to keep moving and find who my people are. So, it's a great opportunity to kind of explore those things. But again, there's some check yourself before you wreck yourself energy. As you could have, there could be some internal dramas within the group with Mars entering that area. So just something to be watchful for. And the drama, because it's in the area that represents groups, might have nothing to do with you. You could just be a witness to it, and in the process of having to navigate that with whoever else is a part of that group. So drama within a friend group that maybe you're witness to and having to help, figure out. But I just think of reality TV a lot, and how so many reality TV stars are the sign of Cancer. There's a lot of Virgos and Cancers on reality TV, which I find interesting. You'll be having some drama for sure. My two favorite Real Housewives are Virgo and Cancer, and they're both named Lisa. So I think that's funny. Okay, so a couple other things. Jupiter is, going to be in Aries for the whole month. We already talked about that. Saturn is moving into Pisces starting March 7th. And so Saturn is going to be in Pisces until 2025. And we're having, another cycle through Pisces. So kind of in those same themes that I was talking about earlier, it's opposite Virgo. And Saturn's a difficult planet. Saturn represents blocks, restrictions, structure, responsibility, rules. But the thing about Saturn that's really positive is it also represents authority and bringing things into form. And so, boundaries are a big theme with Saturn. And Saturn in a sign like Pisces, a lot of things in the imagination can come to form. They can come to fruition during this time, but there's blockages around it. It's not easy. There's usually obstacles that have to be overcome so that we can create that inner sense of authority. The last time Saturn was in Pisces was in 1994 and 1995. So you can look back if you were alive or, of an age where you remember things to what was going on during that time in your life. You can also look and Google historical events. The area that this is happening for the Virgo horoscope is the area that represents relationships and marriages. And when Saturn enters this area, there's two things that happen typically. You either find your person that you're going to commit to and you're ready to tie the knot with, or the opposite happens, where if you're already in a committed relationship, whether you're married or not, it kind of gets put on the chopping block. So it's like, is this the person that I'm meant to be with, you know, romantically? This could also come up for business partnerships. And if so, you know, what does that look like? And if not, then it's time to end it. So a lot of times when people are going through this transit in a personal chart, you know, probably less so in a horoscope, but if you're Virgo rising in your personal chart, it can be really exciting for getting married, but it can also equal divorce, you know, or breaking up. So those are a couple things that, you know, will be interesting. It's also, you know, in Pisces again is very romantic. So you might feel inclined to want to work more romance into your relationship, deeper emotional, spiritual connection into your relationship. And if you're not able to do that, that might be part of why the relationship's not working. So yeah, it's a cycle to kind of be aware of that's starting this month. Pluto is entering Aquarius at the end of the month, and it's going to station in Aquarius officially for the next 20 years in 2024. So we have it dancing between Aquarius and Capricorn for this year. And, you know, the area that that's influencing Virgo is your health. So your Pluto's not an easy transit either. And because it's going to be in the 6th house area of the chart that Virgo traditionally rules in a horoscope, I mean, over the next 20 years, you know, what's going on with you? What's going on with your health? So this is a really good time to take care of your nervous system, having it in the sign of Aquarius. It's a really good time to be mindful of your circulation and the things that you do with your body in that way. I think that I don't want to give too much input on Pluto and Aquarius in relation to health because it's so nuanced for people on an individual level. And for a horoscope, I don't think looking at Pluto in this way is very constructive. So I'm gonna leave it out of there. But Pluto and Aquarius is going to change things for all of us. It's a new cycle. It starts, we're getting the beginnings of it this month at the end. So we'll move into the moons and kind of leave it at that. So really exciting for Virgo. We have a full moon at 16 degrees of Virgo on March 7th. This is a great time for you to put any kind of intentions out there around your identity and your relationship to self and your confidence. So the area that this full moon is hitting has to do with our relationship to ourselves. And what is that personal relationship like? Is it a confident one? Do we have some insecurities about things? Do we have a hard time asserting ourselves? Like, you know, those are the kinds of themes that we're working through. And so asking yourself that stuff and asking yourself, what intentions can I set around building more positivity within the relationship that I have with myself, more confidence. If that's not an issue that you have in terms of like confidence or putting yourself out there or your relationship to self, you can focus on manifesting, you know, anything that you want for the new year or, you know, new astrological year, or releasing things that you don't want to bring with you into the new astrological year is a good theme too. Virgo is great for getting organized and spring cleaning. And so March 7th is a really good day to take action and initiate kind of some of those rituals around getting rid of stuff or cleaning your space. We have our new moon in Aries on March 21st at 0 degrees Aries. And that's also going to be conjunct Mercury. So your ruling planet Mercury is going to be in the mix that day. And again, this is the area around those assets, shared resources, marriage. So again, new moons are great for setting intentions. So if you have intentions around those things and kind of getting that stuff figured out and sorted, the new moon's a great time to set intentions for that and to start really taking action around that. Aries is all about action. That is your horoscope for March 2023, Virgo. Good luck.